Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Hello, superstarters. This is Tina Dietz, and welcome to the Start Something Show. Today, we welcome Brian Ridgway, who has a really fascinating story about how he gained and lost his fortune not once, not twice, but 7 times before he had the breakthrough that turned it all around for him. Now, they say that most millionaires declare bankruptcy at least twice in their lifetime, but 7 times to gain and lose your fortune. It's a pretty interesting story, and Brian is kind of a delightfully weird guy. I really enjoyed meeting him and looking forward to our conversation on the show later today. So before we get to that, let's talk about our Q&A file. I have a letter here from Jim, who comes to us from Biloxi, Mississippi, and he writes, "Dear Tina, I am an introvert, and I love my business. I love what I do, but I find that working a networking room, as they say," he put that in quotes, "to be excruciating. I just want to kind of hide in the corner, and that makes me look like an idiot. How can I be good at networking if I'm an introvert?" Okay, Jim, not everybody's an extrovert. I am, but a lot of the folks that I work with are introverts, and let's make that a distinction between being introverted and being shy. The distinction of introversion and extraversion, as it's been defined through things like the Myers-Briggs assessment, simply means that if you're an extrovert, you get your energy by being with other people. Your batteries get charged that way. If you're an introvert, that means you get your batteries charged by being more alone, and you need that time. I'm going to give you one of my favorite tips for being effective at networking, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. But particularly if you're an introvert, this is going to help ease your way. When you go to a networking event, there's pretty much always somebody signing people in, taking down their names and giving out name tags. When you get to that point, ask the person who's signing people in to introduce you to somebody who can help introduce you around. Say something like, "Hi, it's my first time here, and I would really love it if someone could introduce me around. Is there somebody here who could do that with me?" And just see what they have to say. They want their event to be successful, and most people who are running the event are going to be thrilled that you're taking such an interest in meeting the people in the group. So you get to have a guided tour of the room and oftentimes meet the best people in the room right away. So not only is it going to ease your way because you're going to have a go-between person introducing you around, but you're also probably going to meet some of the most interesting and most successful people in the room faster. The Who Do You Know game is one of my favorite games to play, whether it's for referrals or networking. It has many, many, many uses. You can find out more about how to play the Who Do You Know game and more tips on networking at thestartsomethingshow.com in our content library, which is part of our free membership. You can head over to the website and check it out and also submit your Q&A at thestartsomethingshow.com. Today, our guest on the Start Something Show is Brian Ridgway. Brian helps people put their businesses and their lives into hyper growth by finding and eliminating what he calls their hidden primary constraint. He has been called the $161 million man and the Spellbreaker. Most of his clients are people who have already invested years or decades in personal development, but with limited results. Brian's speed and effectiveness in creating breakthroughs is drawing a rapidly expanding international audience, which is exactly how Brian's work came to my attention here for the show. Brian is in the rare ranks of professionals who have actually generated over $100 million in revenue in multiple industries, and he is the creator of what he calls the Level 5 paradigm, which I'm very excited to hear more about today. He is currently sharing this paradigm at his website, level5mentoring.com. Brian, thanks for starting something with me today.
I'm happy to be on and excited, Tina.
Yeah, very, very cool. You were sending, you and I were chatting, and you sent me over some information about some of the things you speak on and about the paradigm, and it really got me intrigued. And I specifically didn't kind of go through your story in the bio because your story is so compelling. So I want you to take us back to when you were kind of getting started and going through your journey. When did you know you wanted to change your life and start something?
Oh, wow. You'll have to rein me in a couple times.
That's okay. I'm used to that.
Good. But when I share my story, I literally have to start at the beginning, and I've learned how to do it pretty quickly. So, I was born to a really angry 6'4", redheaded, angry Irishman who just left the military, and a mom with fairly low self-esteem. And all of us are a product of our parental upbringing on a level that the vast majority of us don't have a clue. We all know we're kind of dealing with it, but really I've worked with now almost 50,000 people, and I've seen this in ways that nobody's ever had a chance to see. Hopefully we'll get deeply into that today. And so I came up with very low self-esteem, absolutely certain that I was what I was programmed to believe, that was a stupid, ugly, worthless piece of crap. That's literally what the self-esteem and self-image I came up with. So when I started making money, well, really life was miserable for me from birth until 46 years. I'm 50 now. And I got into self-help, personal development, business, money, and success courses at a very early age, just trying to make my life work. And so I've been in the process of starting something for 50 years.
Starting and restarting and restarting. Yes. Literally. Yeah. That's a more common story than and it's one of the reasons I was happy that you're sharing this, because you're not the only one and people need to know that.
Yeah. And so I spent about $300,000 on that I documented, probably closer to $500,000, but over $300,000 that I documented on every type of personal development, religion, metaphysical studies, belief elimination, meditation, any type of practice, program, seminar, money, business, success course that said it was going to help me make my life work. And literally all of it contributed. I became the world's most positive thinker, and my life got worse and worse and worse and worse along the way. And so, again, you have to rein me in a couple times. That's a good starter, then you can fine tune with your excellent question.
Well, you had a turning point, and because one of the things we talk about here on the show is dealing with failure. And that failure is not a dirty word, that we're all dealing with it. We're all dealing with our own crap. And, the failure is often where we find the most juice in our development, the biggest breakthroughs. And let's talk about, where you hit that point where something had to change and your breakthrough happened.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, so around 44, I had hit bottom for the 473rd time. I came up, I worked as a professional musician, kind of hiding from life from 17 to my early 30s. And I literally, I smoked pot, I drank alcohol, I partied, and I avoided life. Literally for the majority of my life. I got involved in that stuff as a kid, and then as a quote adult, starting 17, 18, I hid in the dark playing music. And I didn't think there was really any hope for me in my life. And then I got into business in my early 30s, where most people are creating a real life for themselves. I was starting puberty, like in my 30s, mentally and emotionally. What the hell's going on here? And I ended up making a lot of money. I generated $161 million, but I made and lost my own fortune 7 times. And
7 times.
7 times. Most people wake up after 1 or 2. And I literally, the 7th time, I was ready to end my life. And I happily would have done so had I not had kids that gave me a really powerful reason to live, just because of what my exiting my body would have done to them. And really grateful for that now. And so I saw that if I didn't resolve this, if I didn't find my way out of this, I was going to end up dying. If I had made another dime and had it taken from me again, I would have still just ended my life. It was just too much for me. So I knew the bottom line happened when I knew that I had created these 7 circumstances. But if I had gone in with a judge or a mediator who had looked at the 7 situations with me, they would have said, this guy's innocent. Like he didn't do this. Other companies and other people did this to him. That's how it looked on the surface. But in my heart, I knew I was the one creating my life. I knew I was creating my reality. And I just couldn't see how it was me. And I hit this point of desperation. I am going to find out how it is that I'm creating my life. I'm going to find out how it is that I created these, quote, disasters so that I can, A, stop creating them, and B, start to create the life that I really want. And it just put me in a place of desperation that's really rare. And I made some choices and some commitments and some actions that I've never seen anyone else. I'm not sure I'm not the only one, but I've never seen or heard anyone else making them. And it really turned things around for me, that commitment.
And what was the commitment that you made?
I was going to find out how it was me, no matter what it took.
So that 100% responsibility, 100% accountability, it was that was the line in the sand.
Yeah, and I literally meditated day and night without stopping for 3 months. I was like, a bulldog. When they bite something, they won't let go. And I held on to this question, how did I create this? And I wouldn't let it go day and night for 3 months. I woke up in the morning, put on my tennis shoes. They took the Mercedes, they took the house, they took everything, and I stayed on my commitment because I was not going to make another dime and let it happen again. So literally day and night for 3 months, I meditated on the question, how is this me? How did I create this? And I got a chance to go into the depths of manifestation, creation, self-esteem, intuition, and had some revelations that would take a lot longer than you and I have today. But I'll tell you one of them that's really going to be potentially profound and helpful for your audience, this idea of failure. I literally made not the intellectual, but the comprehensive understanding that there is literally no such thing as failure. And there's literally no such thing as success. They are mental fabrications that we have created. There's a word called nominalizations, which means a word that doesn't mean anything. It points to other words. It's not like, computer. There's a computer. Here's a desk. Here's my cup. But there's no such thing as success or failure. They're words that point to other words. They have no reality, no benefit. And once we start to chase success, which is an illusion, we're just chasing our ideas of success, which aren't even the same as the next guy and the next girl's idea of success. We're running from failure, which doesn't exist except for ideas. We're trapped, literally trapped in an illusion that has all these unconscious rules and assumptions and assessments from our parents and their parents, and every time they ever use those ridiculous words that don't mean anything. And that was one of the things that really led me to this concept of total personal freedom, absolute, limitless personal freedom that I'm expanding more into every day and helping people around the world step into.
So now, before we move on to the work that you do, one of the things that comes up as a big concern for small business owners, for entrepreneurs, for human beings in general is, what about the kids? Now, you mentioned that your kids kind of kept you on this planet. Yep. Now, how did you deal with being a parent with these, ups and downs that you were having? And how did your family members react and feel about all this?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. I am many people would use the word weird to describe me, and that's okay because I found out what weird really means is having to do with spirit. So I'm okay being weird.
It's okay. You're in good company.
Good. I've always been just extremely, extremely close to my kids, and my communication with my kids, my ex and I are no longer together. We split up 4 years ago and actually get along the best we ever have. And I've always been so close with my kids that even at very, very early ages, well, I found out there's we don't have time for the deep discussion on this, but I'll just drop a hint that there's a lot of research done that babies infants can actually communicate on levels that we've never dreamed. And although their speaking apparatus doesn't work, they can learn sign language and they can communicate at a very high level far before they can speak or talk. And so I was fortunate that my ex-wife got really into that. And I learned early that children are far, far, far beyond in comprehension communication than what we've ever believed. And so I communicated to my kids what I was feeling, what I was thinking, what I was experiencing, what I was learning, and they really were with me through the process. We've got a really unique relationship, me and my kids. So that was a blessing for me and them, and they've learned a lot through that process.
Brilliant. All right. Well, then what happened as you came out of this space of deep contemplation?
Well, first of all, I saw, and God, it would be great. Maybe we'll have another conversation sometime and I'll get to share more of the insights that happened and how it happened, but it's really fascinating. But the bottom line is I saw that it was self-esteem. I saw that it was intuition and that I had been guided through every one of those situations, and I ignored my guidance, tuning it out and saying I wasn't intuitive. I came to see we're all absolutely perfectly intuitive, totally plugged into all the knowledge information in the universe all the time. We've just been conditioned to not see it, not sense it. We've tuned it out. And so I became aware in that moment. After 3 months, I had this revelation moment. And from there, I ramped it back up slowly. I had a few small repeats of the pattern, but never was taken for money again. And then I ramped my way up for the next couple of years. And then literally I had the awakening miracle of a lifetime. January 3rd, 2011, I had an awakening experience where I just saw everything. And that's the biggie. I actually have an entire webinar that I did a couple of years ago where I told my entire story. So many people asked. But I came to see that we're energy beings in an energetic universe of infinite possibilities. It's not just a clever spiritual statement. It's not just a fascinating intellectual concept anymore. We are energy in an infinite ocean of energy. There's no physical universe here. There's nothing physical to have to deal with. And we're actually in a state of grace, in perpetual grace with infinite possibilities every second. And having that revelation become no longer an intellectual fascination, but my living reality changed everything. And so I went from this slow ramp up for a couple of years into just stepping into a miracle. And now since January 3rd, 2011, it's been a never-ending, nonstop, mind-blowing miracle that just gets better every minute. And here I am talking to you now. Like, it just continues.
It definitely continues. So as you were now building your message, your expertise, your platform, and taking all of your history and the good parts and putting it into, everything you had learned, what did you find on this journey now for the last couple of years that were some of the moments of brilliance that you had in developing this paradigm, this level 5 paradigm, your programs, your webinars? What are some of the moments that stand out for you in the development of your message and your business?
Oh, wow. Man, I love that question. I was in sales most of my life, and I did sales and marketing, and I studied the absolute best. I mean, I studied number ones, the greatest minds that have ever lived in all those areas. And in personal development, I studied the greatest minds. One of my questions for many years was, who's number one at this specific batch of information? Who's number one at this technique or this tactic or this field? And who do they say is number one? And I just read and consumed everything they had. And I got in this practice of, how do I ask the greatest questions that are going to create the greatest results for me? How do I master being a great question asker? And I mean, that's a really big deal for me. And that moved me down this path of always being in a state of asking questions. I believe the greatest power available to us is when we don't know anything. It's when we're completely open to infinite possibilities. You can't be open to infinite possibilities when you know anything. And that's tough for the mind to accept, but boy, does it bring freedom. And so I've had so many moments where I was just asking a question and a great insight came through that's another thing that would take an hour-long interview, but I can give you one moment. I was working on a presentation. How do I convey, infinite intelligence and the ability to live in total connection to your infinite intelligence and your ever-present guidance? How do I convey that more effectively to people? One of my biggest questions has been for years, how can I elicit the greatest, fastest, deepest, most immediate and lasting transformation in the people that show up for me? That question is always running in the back of my mind. And I realized that if we're infinite, unlimited energy that's projecting out of eternity where there's no experience possible because nothing moves in eternity. It's a static state of eternal bliss, which is awesome, but apparently gets freaking boring. So we project out of eternity into time and space to have an experience, creating time and space and universes and all this other and possibilities to have business and relationships and connections with seemingly other people. I realized that if we're projecting out of eternity for the purpose of having experience, then the most valuable thing that we can do, now it's really easy to go past this. It's really easy to think, well, that couldn't be that powerful or that's not that important. I'm telling you that I had this moment where I realized the single most important thing I could possibly do in my life was to continuously ask the question, what do I want to experience now? If I'm projecting out of eternity into time and space for the sole purpose of having experience, then focusing on what do I want to experience now was the most powerful thing I could do. And that ties right into one of the greatest quotes ever given to us, which came through Joseph Campbell. Everybody repeats, follow your bliss. But most people don't finish the sentence. He said, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where before there were only walls.
Yes. I love Joseph Campbell. Absolutely love this. And I love that what we're getting into here. Really, this is a mini course in metaphysics for you guys that are out there who are listening. So if you're not familiar with some of the principles of metaphysics, they're actually absolutely crucial, and not from a woo-woo standpoint of the laws of attraction, from a very deep, scientific, measurable perspective that everything really is energy on not even a cellular level, on an atomic level. It actually gets much smaller than that when you look at the science of it. I want to go back to something that you said, because I want to pull this down and ground this for our audience here. You said that, and correct me if I got this wrong, you can't be open to infinite possibility when you know anything. Right. So as people are, because we're always trying to know stuff, we're always trying to learn stuff. And that's, of course, there's reasons for doing that. And however, you had said that you also spent, was it 3 months basically meditating? Yeah. Now, is that the kind of withdrawal of the senses, the absence of knowing, that you might recommend to somebody as a practice to get into that space? Good. Really great question. I would say that that's not actually necessary for the vast majority of people. Fortunately, and this is kind of funny sounding, but fortunately, I did that so you don't have to. I basically... Yay, because I actually don't love meditation, even though I think it's great. And Tina, this is like shocking, but I actually did some research and found the vast majority of people, especially Westerners, that's U.S., Canada, our side of the world, the vast majority of us have literally been conditioned to the point where meditation is basically impossible for us. Mm-hmm. It's literally a total waste of time. It's almost impossible. And the amount of time, fortunately, there's things you can do that will bring you the same benefits as meditation. This is just not talked about, but they'll bring you the same benefits as meditation without meditating. And one is simply asking incredibly powerful questions that get you back into your body, which is the primary purpose of meditation in the first place. It gets you out of your freaking mind. And so quickly, one of the things you said, the not knowing and the way that we're trying to know, we have all been conditioned in our governmental, educational, medical, and even our religious
systems of energy that are institutions on this planet right now are primarily designed to keep us addicted to being in our minds, and therefore non-effective, not empowered, and largely powerless. I know it's a kind of a controversial statement, but the cool thing is I'm not talking about conspiracy theories, because we actually create our world. So we created it that way because we really wanted to limit ourselves and have the experience of limitation. And the biggest limitation we have is dwelling in our minds.
Let's talk about that for just a second. I want to bring because that's a really important point about being in your body.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Now, how does somebody know? This is the funny part. How do you determine if you're in your body?
If you're feeling peace, you're in your body. If you're feeling love, you're in your body. If you're feeling joy, you're in your body. If you're feeling anything else, you're either partially or completely in the mind or literally out of your body. And one of those things we don't have time for, but there's, you study Chinese medicine and a lot of other Hinduism, which is not a religion, it's a science, actually. We don't get that information here in America very much. But if you study those systems, you'll find we have multiple bodies, and they're actually all aspects or shades of the one body. So we have a physical body, a mental body, which is literally distinct and not separate from our physical body, and an emotional body, which is distinct but not separate or apart from our physical body. These bodies are all real. And when we are not in our physical body, when we're in our physical body, we have access to our emotional body and mental body, and we're fully in our center and power. When we're out in our mental body, which is where the vast majority of us spend most of our time, we're frustrated, stressed, overwhelmed, confused, and virtually powerless. And that's where the huge majority of us spend our time, and that's procrastination, overwhelm, confusion, frustration.
So when experts say that you need to work on your mindset, do you think that's a misguided statement? I
think it's almost, excuse me, you might have to bleep this out. It's almost total bullshit. I mean, the whole mindset thing, it's almost everybody talks about it. And in my experience, 99% of personal development is just total bullshit. It's a distraction that's not changing lives. I mean, ask 1,000 people like I do every month. Ask 1,000 or more people about their experience with personal development, and they're frustrated, they're confused, they're feeling misguided, and it's because the vast majority of people, today, if you watch The Secret 3 times, you can put up a shingle as a law of attraction expert. And if you ever heard Zig Ziglar or Brian Tracy talk, you can call yourself a personal dev expert and write a book and then give people the same information that they've been getting for the last 100 years. 99% of it does nothing. So, yeah, maybe controversial. Some people might not like hearing it. But, yeah, mindset is just a tiny piece. It's very inaccurate. It's very incomplete at best.
So where is a better entry point for people who want to develop results?
Presence. It's becoming present, and that means being fully in your body, fully centered, where you're in your power, you're in your effective place, you're in your body, where you can direct and guide your energies with questions that activate your emotions and your thoughts. I call it being a conscious creator, as opposed, we're all creating 24/7. We can't stop, can't turn it off.
No, we can't. That's very true. Yeah.
But we can become a conscious creator. And that's really what all of my work is based on and focused on, is helping people to become conscious creators and to become a more effective conscious creator myself every moment.
All right. Very cool. Now, you and I are going to dig deeper into some of the specifics of your work and principles. And this is some fascinating stuff. We're really, I love shaking up the status quo. And I'm really looking forward to having you on our Backstage Pass, Brian. So everyone out there listening, make sure you do join us on the website for Brian's Backstage Pass, where we're going to be digging in deeper to some of this really important work on effectiveness and digging into, being inside of our bodies, what it actually means to be present, and exactly what is the level 5 paradigm. But before we get to that, one last question, Brian. If you were just starting out today And you had your knowledge, but not the resources you've developed over the years. What would be some of the first things you would do to start something?
I would start with the little bit that I kind of know now, and I use that word know playfully because of what I said earlier. I would start focusing on what do I want to experience now? What do I really want to experience? Sitting here in this moment with the time, talent, knowledge, skills, ability, connections that I have in this moment, no matter what those are, no matter how big or small those assets and resources may be, from the perfect situation I'm in right now, what do I want to experience? And by focusing there, I'm going to immediately begin to move in the direction of my highest excitement, my highest bliss, my highest joy, the code of expression that I came into this universe to have by focusing on that one question that actually opens everything. That's really in fact, that's everything I would do. Because the minute that you focus on what do I really want to experience now, and you hold that, you open yourself to only the energies that take you to your highest power and your highest expression, and all the answers and connections and guidance begins to come through immediately, automatically.
Brilliant. Powerful, powerful questions. Brian, thank you so much for joining us here on the Start Something show today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Tina. Enjoyed it.
All right, Superstarters, we'll see you on the Backstage Pass and over at thestartsomethingshow.com. Have a great week.
Start something with purpose. Start something with freedom. Start something now. Go to thestartsomethingshow.com, join our community of Superstarters, and get your perfect day planner pack, a free resource to help you create the life you've dreamed of living. Take action now, and we'll see you for our next exciting episode.